There's a reason why for the last 13 years, startups overwhelmingly prefer to build on top of AWS. We have the largest number of services, making it easy for you to take on some of the biggest challenges with the smallest teams. We also have partnerships with the top VCs, accelerators, and incubators around the world, making it easier to secure your next round of funding.
I'm a solution architect with the AWS Head Start program. What we do is we work with startups in the education sector, and we help them build their services on AWS.
So We Power Tech is AWS's diversity and inclusion outreach program. The program is really twofold. One is to increase the number of underrepresented technologists within the industry, and the second is to provide a platform for them to be seen and heard.
If you're wondering how the AWS evangelism team might be able to help your startup, there are many ways. We're technically credible across our entire catalog of products, so we can help you figure out which services might be able to meaningfully impact your business. We also want to help tell your story. So if you're building something cool, we want to know about it and help spread that message to the world. So you might end up on stage at an event like AWS Summit. If you're a startup, you should also definitely check out the AWS Lofts. These are event spaces that are free to anyone with an AWS account. And you can treat them like co-working spaces, but the awesome thing about them is that we also have people like technical evangelists like myself, solutions architects that come and give hands-on technical workshops and sessions to help you learn how to more effectively utilize the AWS products and platforms that you're already building on top of.
We are a dedicated team of people that love startups, that we just want to come and help you with whatever we can, whether it be technical or business focused. We are here to help guide you and make sure that you do have a say in what's going on. We do get your feedback. We do bring that feedback to the service teams. That is what we're here for.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi there. Hope you can hear us. So we've just begun. We have an audience with us as well. We are also live on Facebook and all our other platforms. Let me just give an intro of Startup Grind and everything to the audience, and then I'll hand it over to Shehab and you all to run the Fireside chat. So my name is Aws Lofts. I run the Startup Grind community in Pakistan. I also run an organization called Aws Labs. We're behind a lot of community building activities for Pakistani technology, whether it's events inside Pakistan or a lot of events outside Pakistan. Ziyad also joined us at the Pakistan Tech Summit in Silicon Valley recently in February, which happens to be the last major physical event of the industry, I think. And due to Corona, now we're experimenting with all this digital virtual events, which has been going on really well. So this month, Startup Grind is with support from AWS. We've started the Mentorship Month program, which covers our regular Fireside chat events, which we've been doing in 600 cities and 25 countries around the globe, but also to connect all the entrepreneurs with people like you, so they can learn from your journey. And the series which we're running in Pakistan is supported by a bunch of partners from across the industry, across Pakistan and outside Pakistan as well. To give background of Startup Grind, we are the world's largest community of entrepreneurs, actively educating, connecting, inspiring entrepreneurs in more than 600 cities in 125 countries around the globe. I've personally been running the Islamabad Pakistan community for the past 3 years. And over the 3 years, we've hosted more than 110 digital leaders, entrepreneurs, educators, inventors, investors in for Fireside chats, but also for our flagship Startup Grind Pakistan conference, which we did in November. A bunch of people joined us from across the world, from Silicon Valley, from London, from all these different places, and also from a lot of digital leaders from Pakistan. Some of our highlights, include that this conference was the first ever Startup Grind conference in all of Asia, and it's a big digital kind of conference around the globe. So we wanted to bring this spotlight to Islamabad, to Pakistan. With this event series, we're also offering a number of perks from AWS to our attendees. So they can sign up for this one-on-one mentorship program. So after the event, we'll send the application form via an email and get office hours with some of the leading experts from around the globe, courtesy of AWS. But also startups can get AWS Activate credits, right? Up to $100,000, depending on the stage of the startup and everything. So we'll also share that application link with the startups after the chat as well. Let me just introduce the amazing speakers that we have today. So I'll start with our moderator for this evening. So Shehab Farrukh Niazi, a dear friend and a very active super connector in Pakistan. She runs Startup Guide Pakistan, among many other things. Startup Guide happens to be the leading startup magazine in Pakistan, which has done a lot of amazing work. And she's always actively supporting startups and entrepreneurs through her work. For today, we have two very amazing speakers that we're hosting. So both of you are the founder of Safepay, which is like the PayPal of Pakistan, right? And what's amazing is that Safepay was part of the Y Combinator startup school, but also a grant recipient as well, which is in itself a big achievement. So I'll just hand it over to Shehab to further lead the conversation and introduce you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arzir. Thank you. Hi, Raza, and hi, Ziyad, and hi, everyone else. I hope that all of you are doing great and taking care of yourselves. Today we have the co-founders of Safepay, Ziyad Parekh, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, and Raza Naqvi. So before I start off with all the questions that I have for you guys today, I would request you to please introduce yourselves briefly, and in terms of your background and in terms of how you came about with the idea of Safepay.
And thank you guys for joining this. It's great to be here. So yeah, just a little bit of background about myself and Safepay. I grew up in Karachi. Went to school there, did my high school there, and came to the US for my college. After graduating, I kind of moved to New York City, worked at a few different tech companies in Manhattan, and then ultimately made my journey out west to the Bay Area and then San Francisco, where I am today, pretty much talking to you from here. So it's kind of awesome that we're able to do all of this virtually and from 3 different continents almost, and talk to everyone. So how did Safepay come about? How did we kind of get into this? So it kind of came about a few different things. One is obviously, like, I'm a software engineer. Programming and creating things and building stuff is kind of what I'm interested in. And I was always kind of trying to come up with something that would eventually pull me back to Pakistan. I have a job. I've had multiple jobs in the US, and they're all fine. It's great. It's a good place to be. But ultimately, I knew that I would have to come back to Pakistan. And if I was to come back to Pakistan, I wanted to do something meaningful that I can come back to. And I was just searching for a bunch of different things that I could do, some things that Pakistan could really use, some challenging, difficult problems that I could potentially solve. And one of the issues that was always kind of frustrating, not just to me, but in general, I guess, to a lot of Pakistanis and a lot of entrepreneurs, is the lack of a reliable and convenient payment solution, right? So I was like, all right, maybe we can apply technology to solve something like that. And we're not the first company to do this. We're not going to be the last company that does this, probably. But we thought that we were in a unique position to try something different that hasn't been done before. So what we kind of decided was, we'll take a stab at it. We had no idea how the payments, the rails, and the back-end financial infrastructure works, but we understood technology. And maybe we could, in an MVP setting, just like hack something together and build it and throw it out there and see what happens. So we're like, sure, we do this. We kind of built it over the course of, I would say, 6 to 7 months while I was in San Francisco, and launched it in May of 2019, so just about 10 months ago. And it picked up. It was pretty interesting. At this time, it was it was just me. And I knew that, if this was something that was an interesting problem, and if people really felt that they wanted to use it, I would need help. So that's when I approached Raza, who's now my co-founder, and he's pretty much like a brother to me. I've known him for 25 years almost. I can't remember the first time we met, pretty much. But I knew that he'd be the right guy to kind of bring on board for this. So yeah, I'll let him introduce himself to all of you.
Thanks, Ziyad. Yeah, so Ziyad's actually left off at a good point. I should start off by saying that I don't have a technical background like Ziyad. So we went to the same high school in Karachi, and we've known each other for a very, very long time now. I went to the UK and studied law at university, and I practiced law in London for close to 5 years before moving back to Karachi it would be 2 years now. So in April of 2018, I believe it was. So Ziyad and I had been kind of in touch about Safepay. So he had initially reached out to me at that time just to kind of understand the regulatory aspect of things, and just to kind of see how things in the UK, how payment companies in the UK are going about it, the literature that was available from the State Bank of Pakistan, how to kind of digest that and take away and have takeaways that we could kind of onboard at that point. But as Ziyad said, like, it wasn't until May 2019 now, which is around it's coming up to a year now, when we had a discussion and he had launched Safepay in the current version that we know of it, that we decided to kind of take it forward, because I was in Karachi. I was kind of in a space where I wanted to explore kind of an entrepreneurial kind of environment as well. I knew I didn't want to go back to practicing law per se, and I thought Safepay was actually a pretty interesting segue into what actually excites me, which is kind of entrepreneurship and all different kind of aspects of the business, of businesses in general. I also have quite a kind of an interest in the tech side of it, not obviously at the level that Ziyad and then some other members in our team kind of have because of their backgrounds. But it's been quite an interesting shift in skills that I've had to develop over the last 10 months. So I hope that gives you a kind of background as to kind of where I come from, at least, so what I was doing before Safepay.
Okay, amazing. So and I know that you said that Ziyad, you said that you're based out of San Francisco and you guys work remotely. So and we all know that for entrepreneurs who formulate their own companies, one of the most amazing things is that you can actually formulate whatever kind of culture you want, and for the team, and whatever kind of working culture you want to introduce. So, and in light of the current crisis that we're going through, and everybody's working remotely. So in your experience, since you've worked, kind of built that culture for your company of working remotely, would you shed a little light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to pretend and say that this is something we thought of from the start. It happened by accident. And originally, when I first moved to the Bay Area, I would drive around Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, see all these amazing office buildings like your Google campus, Apple's campus, Facebook's campus, and they're all very amazing, spectacular buildings. And I'd always think that it'd be pretty awesome to one day maybe have a smaller office of this size somewhere in Palo Alto. That was my dream. And now fast forward 2019. I have the complete opposite of that. So no office. I'm working from my room in a house in San Francisco, and I'm working with 5 other people all over. One's in 2 are in Karachi, one's in Islamabad, one's in London, so all over the world, over 3 continents. The complete opposite. So how and why did that come up? And basically, like, why is it a good kind of option for entrepreneurs? So for us specifically, I couldn't really convince Raza or the other people who are helping us with this to move to San Francisco. It wasn't smart, and for this same reason, I couldn't technically move back to Pakistan just yet because I had like commitments and responsibilities over here that I had to kind of fulfill. So we were just like, let's play it by ear. Let's see what happens. And right about the time, we have all these amazing tools like Zoom and Slack that kind of just make everyone feel like they're more connected than you could be in a physical setting. Like WhatsApp especially, right? So it all started over these WhatsApp groups. I think there was a time at the start when Raza created 20 groups for Safepay in all these different fields, and we were just like crazy. And then eventually, we're like, all right, this group is for this, this was for this, and we started to just kind of consolidate everything. And then, I came to Karachi in January, to have a bunch of meetings with banks and State Bank and all of that stuff. And we realized that, this isn't a bad setup. We have the ability to do everything we need to, and as long as we're responsible enough to do the work that we need to do, we can get it done. Because even if you're in an office setting, even if you're working together, sure, there's that synergy where you have the connection, the physical connection with people, and you're able to collaborate. And there are a lot of benefits with working in a physical space, don't get me wrong. But if you don't have that option, you need to kind of be more responsible and disciplined to make sure that you get the work done. Because if you're not going to get it done, no one else is going to do it for you, and it's not going to get done. So we started off with that mindset. And alhamdulillah, it's been going pretty well for us. And then now fast forward to coronavirus and all of this, these crazy times, kind of just, we kind of got lucky with that in a way, because we don't have office. If we had an office, if we had a bunch of overheads, those costs would just add up exponentially for us. The fact that we don't have those costs are kind of allowing us to stay nimble and staying afloat of all of this kind of nonsense pretty much. But yeah, it's been super, super cool to see that, because of our remote culture, we're now able to attract people to work with us that we wouldn't have been able to because of the physical restraint or the physical constraint that they might have. So, we have someone in Islamabad who's helping us, someone in London who's helping us, and that wouldn't have been possible if we had an office space in Karachi. So yeah, I highly encourage people to look into that. There are so many tools now out there that you could take advantage of to make remote working easy for you guys. And as long as you're disciplined about it, it's a no-brainer.
Great. So, and when you were thinking about, all the different ideas that you could actually work on maybe, so why digital payments? Because, I know it's a very important need, but at the same time, because of all the regulations or lack thereof, there's, a lot of uncertainty and people find it kind of intimidating. So, this is like a two-part question. So, what kind of convinced you that, you could get into this? And what is your, given your experience, what is your take on the digital payments landscape that is currently prevalent in Pakistan?
Yeah, no, great questions. So for me personally, I would say the reason I went into picking payments per se, or fintech, was like a personal frustration of mine. It's like grew up in Pakistan, like I said, went to the US, and in the US, you had these amazing facilities at your disposal, right? You can sign up at that time, not you can do this in Karachi now, but at the time you could, sign up to Netflix, buy stuff from Amazon, do any kind of e-commerce, any kind of payments you wanted very conveniently. And like a lot of people took that for granted over there because it's what was expected, right? It was like the norm of life. And I got really used to that, right? Like calling an Uber from my phone, going wherever I wanted to, not having to pay for anything. It was just automatically deducted from my phone or from my card. And those same things didn't exist in Pakistan. So every time I'd come back to visit my family over the summer, winter break, it would just be this frustration that I had that, you can't do these things in Pakistan. Why can't you do these things in Pakistan? Everyone would complain on Facebook and social media about the lack of PayPal, why the government hasn't brought PayPal into Pakistan. What's wrong with Pakistan that PayPal doesn't want to come in? And I don't think that that's the right way to think about it. So what I realized during my time in the US was that companies like Stripe and Braintree were created even though PayPal existed in the US. But these companies allowed entrepreneurs, digital entrepreneurs, developers, software engineers to come up with new and creative solutions for business models and websites and companies that didn't exist, right? So you think of companies like Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, all of these kinds of new business models that didn't exist and couldn't exist because of a lack of a creative digital payment solution. And Stripe was able to do that for all of these companies. So that's like kind of my motivations for picking something like this, because I knew that, okay, fine, it's easy to blame the government for not doing enough to bring PayPal into Pakistan. But at the same time, you have to look inwards and think that, hey, maybe if the government isn't able to do this, maybe there's something I, as an individual or as a citizen of my country, can do for my country. So I was like, all right, if no one's going to do it, I'll try to do it. And yeah, it's a difficult problem for sure. We realized that very quickly. And as Raza mentioned, like I didn't know anything regarding regulations and the laws, or like you said, the lack thereof. And I was just like, you know what? I'll just build it, and if it works, I'll ask for forgiveness later. So that was my mindset at the time. And what's interesting is that difficult problems are intimidating, for sure, but in a paradoxical way, they're more fun to solve than easy problems, and they're easier for you to kind of convince other people to help you with, right? If you were to go after like an easy problem, you'd maybe feel like embarrassed telling people that, you're solving this easy problem, because people are going to be like, what's the point? But if you're going after like a very difficult, meaningful problem that you care deeply about, and that, is like really affecting you and other people, you can convince them easily to solve that problem and to help you solve that problem. So I would say that, don't be intimidated by difficult problems. If you break them down, they're just as, you break a difficult problem down into a set of easy problems that build on top of each other to solve that difficult problem. And then one day by day, you chip away at it, and eventually you come up with some sort of solution. Maybe it's not the ideal solution, but it's your solution. And it's something that, you've accomplished on your own, or with a group of trusted friends. And yeah, that's basically how we kind of approach that.
Hi, Shehab. So I think the second part of your question was in relation to kind of the state of digital payments. As Ziyad had mentioned, so like what I personally find really exciting about working with Ziyad is the way, again, he deconstructs a problem actually. And payments is a huge problem. It's almost, and I think online payments in general, they need to be kind of regarded almost as a utility. The way we kind of think and conceptualize about electricity, gas, water, etc. Like that kind of infrastructure needs to be, it's of that importance, frankly. And one of Ziyad's initial messages, which resonated with me a lot, this is way back in 2018, was how, fixing this aspect of the problem can really benefit the country's kind of entrepreneurial spirit. One, in terms of increasing exports, increasing domestic transactions, and like a scourge, which I think anyone in their right mind will, say is a problem for this country, the reliance on cash. It accounts for, from our analysis from kind of SPP data, etc., over the last few years, it accounts for over 90% of transactions that take place in the country. And there are direct costs in association with that, and then there are indirect costs as well. And in the year that we've been operational, we actually have a very wide range of merchants. So you can have someone who is doing 1 order a day or even 1 order a week versus someone who's doing, up to 10, 15 orders a day. And you kind of realize where their pain points arose in relation to the status quo. And as Ziyad said, we're not the first people to come try fix this problem, and we're not going to be the last either. But I think what we want to achieve above anything else is leave our mark on trying to solve that problem. And we've done our analysis on, the players in the market, and, they've all done really great things, because the most difficult, our job is actually not that difficult compared to the first innovators in the payment game in Pakistan, as with anywhere. We've kind of like ridden on their coattails, and the same way someone in the future will ride on our coattails as well. But that being said, in actually a lot of noise in the payment space. Everyone seems to want to get into it. The word pay at the end of every name has kind of diluted our brand equity quite significantly. And ultimately, it's actually led, I feel it's led to some confusion amongst merchants and their customers as well. And, again, this is actually a good problem to have, because ultimately, I think, there is enough of a problem to solve for all these players to exist and to coexist with each other profitably. I think, again, and I'm looking forward to this. If there's one silver lining from this crazy situation in relation to Corona and COVID, is that people actually realize that online commerce, it doesn't have to be like a distant future. It can be now. And online payments as well, they need to be as simple to use as someone being able to get a SIM card, being able to get electricity put to their house, for example, or any other kind of normal activity that we equate with a business. So I hope that answers your question as to what our kind of perspective on the digital payment space here is.
Okay, amazing. So I think you partially answered my next question as well, but I will still ask it, in case you guys need to add anything. So as Ziyad said also, and you also said that, there are a lot of players in the market. And at the same time, the problem is very big. So in your opinion, what would be kind of, like the ultimate solution to I know there's no ultimate solution to anything, but, like Ziyad said that, we keep blaming the government that they don't bring PayPal. What's wrong with Pakistan? What's wrong with PayPal? So in your opinion, what would be and we have Payoneer and we have other solutions as well. So what do you think would be kind of the ultimate, thing that would kind of crack this problem to some extent?
Yeah. So again, I'm not going to pretend that we know the holy grail solution to payments problems in Pakistan, but what we can do and what we're trying to do is, build a payment service that we would want, right? And luckily, Raza and I have very high standards or high bars that we set for ourselves in terms of what is acceptable and what isn't. And whenever we try to build something and any feature that we launch, we try and make sure that we reach that expectation. Now, a lot of our product development cycle and the features that we release, they're directly based on feedback from the merchants we interact with, right? So we don't, we ourselves aren't retailers or online retailers. We don't have an e-commerce store, but what we can do is build the tools that they need to run their business as smoothly as possible, right? So make sure that payments is an afterthought for them. Like, they don't need to care about it. It's like at the back of their mind, it's working, it's fine, they're getting the money. They can focus on just selling and making their customers happy. And we take it upon ourselves to make sure that all the merchants' needs are taken care of in terms of payments, in terms of support, in terms of, making sure that their customers are feeling confident and secure and safe in purchasing online, and trying to drive more of that purchasing volume through digital payments as opposed to cash. Because we all know that cash poses a huge problem to merchants' cash flow cycles. rejected orders, delayed payments, all sorts of stuff. And we kind of want to help them get away from that and increase their kind of cycles as well. So when we started out, we were like, what would be the ideal solution for Pakistan? I didn't know at the time. So I was like, well, let me see what PayPal does. Let me see what Stripe does. Maybe there's something similar that we could do. So we started by designing a very simple and easily integrated payment solution for developers, a very simple API that they could use. For e-commerce merchants who weren't technical, we built plugins for all the popular kind of e-commerce platforms. And we were like, all right, at the very least, we can start the process, right? It might not be the ideal solution in terms of all the different payment methods that exist in Pakistan, but let's start with credit and debit cards and see if we can generate some interest. So we realized that, all right, credit and debit cards, that problem exists in Pakistan. And what else can we build to make sure that merchants are happy with this kind of solution? So they weren't shy about giving us feedback. Let's just put it that way. So they told us a lot of things that we were doing well and a lot of things that we weren't doing well. And we took that feedback to heart, and we were like, well, if we're charging the prices we are, and we're charging the highest pretty much in the market, we want to make sure that we can justify that price, right? We want to make sure that our product is so good that people are like, you know what, I'm going to pay the extra amount just so I can use this because it does everything I need and more. So we were like, all right, this is how we're going to evolve our product to make it the best in the market, based on merchant feedback, to develop the things that they want to build, and then utilizing our experience, given the fact that Raza has lived and worked in London, I've lived and worked in Silicon Valley, and we both grew up in Pakistan. Those unique factors allow us to kind of build the best product that's tailored for the local market. So whether or not it's the ultimate ideal solution, I don't know, but what we can do is just try our best to make sure that A, it's up to our standards, and B, the merchants that we service are like happier than happy.
Okay, great. And when it comes to the merchants, what kind of businesses do you serve? Like if you had to kind of point out 2-3 most prominent segments, what would those be? And then also on the merchant side, what has been, the kind of the response and kind of the adaptability, ease of adaptability sort of for the tech, are they tech savvy? Do you need to kind of work a lot, like, so that the kind of the e-commerce businesses, are they tech savvy enough? Do they need training? Do they need, do you kind of need to help them beyond, what you're supposed to do? So what is kind of the level of the merchants who are, adopting the technology?
In terms of the different merchant segments, we started off just putting it up there on Facebook to see, who would come and bite. And initially it was, majority of them were e-commerce stores, I would say. So, and small ones to start off with, because, no one knew who we were. No one probably still knows. A lot of people probably still don't know. And we're trying to fix that, obviously. But it started off with, your people who were just kind of exploring the space, who wanted to take a risk on this new kind of payment service and try and use it. Luckily, the support and the feedback loop that we kept with them and how we kept them engaged made them kind of share our message to their friends, and that so on and so forth, until eventually, we had merchants in the e-com space selling like electronics and gadgets and all sorts of cool stuff, to now we have companies who are selling insurance and credit card products and doing some very cool things there in the startup world. We have marketplaces for travel packages and tourism, and as well as short-term home rentals all across Pakistan. We also service online educational providers who sell video courses and who host massive online open courses and collect payments for those courses via Safepay. And generally, yeah, we've been hosting companies is another thing. I guess Pakistan, there are a bunch of development companies and hosting companies in Pakistan, freelancers who tend to process payments with their clients through Safepay as well. So yeah, it's just like a broad array of merchant categories that have kind of come to us, and we've been very open with to start accepting payments for them. And that kind of strategy, especially in today's times and these crazy kind of Corona times, has important the idea of diversification is. Obviously the entire world was hit hard by Corona. Businesses had to stop, and for us, there was a time when a lot of e-commerce stores in Pakistan had to stop selling because they couldn't risk the courier companies obviously delivering their goods to different parts of the world. Everyone was on lockdown or quarantine, etc. So our haphazard strategy of just letting anyone come in and accept payments at that time kind of paid off in a way, because while one segment of the industry kind of went down, the other one, which is like your online education and your online books and all of that kind of stuff, that kind of picked up. And it was very interesting to see how these different kind of merchants are kind of like dealing with these crises, dealing with day-to-day operations and stuff like that, because luckily for us now, we have like a pulse on how e-commerce in Pakistan is changing and how it's growing, right? And with that, all of that data, we're able to do some pretty cool analysis on how COVID kind of affected the Safepay economy, at least. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I know you asked the second part of the question, so I think Raza can answer that.
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. I think so Ziyad and I represent two ends of the spectrum as well. Like, he's super technical, and I'm not. So when we release like new products, we have this, we follow it up with a blog post. And the way it kind of works is that Ziyad will do the development, I'll do the write-up on it. And he has to explain it to me in terms that, that I can kind of make it fun and, engaging content for someone who is a layperson to the kind of electronic online payments space. We get a wide array of people who kind of request or apply to join Safepay. So because I've been there since May, and I was in Karachi from then. Like, I was, I remember the first few months where like literally like I had to knock on kind of doors to kind of see, if there was if there was any opportunity for someone to even consider Safepay. So there were a lot of messages sent on Facebook, on Instagram, and interestingly enough, my kind of response rate was pretty high. Because as Ziyad had kind of correctly identified before the launch of Safepay, there is a need in the market for this. In terms of kind of the merchants who use us, there's definitely some which are more sophisticated than the others. But the way we've created Safepay is to kind of cater to all. So as Ziyad mentioned, we have an API, which is kind of more inclined towards those teams that have a development kind of resource. But then on the other end, we have the plugin. So you don't have to be super technical, but if you have an afternoon to spend kind of learning your CMS platform, you can integrate that plugin. And if you're even kind of, not even willing to do that, Ziyad had launched in summer of 2019, a product of ours called Quick Links. And that was a direct kind of response to kind of queries from people who wanted to use Safepay but didn't actually have a website. So with Quick Links, the kind of idea behind that was you can generate a unique URL. You would be able to send that through either WhatsApp, Instagram, email, you name it. And whoever has to pay you just literally receives this message, clicks on the link, and then is redirected to the Safepay checkout experience with all the security behind it that we've baked in, etc. So again, just to answer your question, so there's a broad range, and you know what, we're looking forward to that range, continuing to be the way it is for the next couple of years as well. I think it's great that people who haven't thought about online commerce before or online payments are now coming into that fold. Like, I can give the example of my mother, who is a doctor, and so her hospitals have been shut down. She's not able to have a clinic, and even though like her own son is a co-founder of Safepay, and I've tried to get her to use online payments somehow or the other for the last year, never got a positive response from that. But because of this scenario that we're in right now, and you may have noticed how telemedicine has become a much hotter topic in Pakistan suddenly, she's actually receptive to using Safepay, and I can imagine there must be millions of people in that situation. So also I think this would be a good time to kind of talk about the content that we create as well. So we have a super helpful kind of knowledge center, which we've invested a lot of time on, which has very easy to use guides. We try to break down the kind of process of signing up with Safepay, what our requirements are for onboarding, etc. Like the functionality that Safepay kind of provides. Also, we have kind of a newsletter that we send regularly to our active merchants, with tips on what we've learned in the payment space, or in this kind of current scenario with COVID, the good blogs that we've read on remote working tips, etc. So it kind of, we're lucky that until this point, we've kind of created a close kind of ecosystem, kind of a Safepay ecosystem. And we're kind of at a size now where we can manage that. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops, like the more kind of uptake there is. And I'm hoping that we can kind of stay true to that culture.
Okay, perfect. And in terms of the regulatory framework, have you guys faced any hurdles, or what kind of feedback do you have? Because we know that the State Bank is now actively working on this, and SECP is also kind of working on digital payments. So what has your experience been while interacting with the regulatory bodies?
Sure.
Ziyad,
You can go for it.
Yeah, it's been an extremely pleasant experience, I think. And like I said, I was in Karachi over this past January, and we had our first meeting with the State Bank, specifically the Payment Systems Department, and the rest of their team. And we explained to them our situation, and we told them that what we are trying to do is build tools and basically services that allow businesses in Pakistan to easily accept payments online. Like, at our core, we're not a payments processing company, we're a technology company. Payments processing is just a problem that we're solving right now. And for better or worse, we think we're doing a decent job at it. And that's what we told the State Bank. And we walked them through all the different types of regulations that they have in place, right? So you have your PSP, PSO, EMI, and Raza can elaborate more on these. But what we realized, and with them as well, was that all of those kinds of regulations, there's some majority of those, I guess, terms and that framework doesn't apply to what we're trying to do, right? Because we're not a bank, we're not an acquirer. We work with an acquirer at the back, and all we do is allow them to funnel all the processing through that acquirer, and we've just built a very nice, easy to use, convenient interface around all of these complexities that payments have, right? So one of the biggest things is Pci Dss regulations, right? If every merchant were to go and get their own acquiring account, they would have to be Pci Dss compliant. And A, that's expensive. B, it's difficult. You have to be technical. And C, it's annoying because you have to renew it every quarter. So what Stripe does, and what we also did, because it's a good way to do it, is take that responsibility off of the merchant's shoulders and onto ourselves. So we will make sure that we're as secure as possible, so that you don't have to worry about all these crazy nuances of security and regulations and all of these things, and you can just kind of do what you want to do. And the State Bank kind of understood all of that, and their response was extremely encouraging. At some point, I do believe that we are going to be regulated. Obviously, like, we want to be regulated, and we're actively working towards that with the State Bank, either coming up with a new type of framework that more closely fits our business model, or trying to adapt our business model to their existing frameworks. And I guess Raza can tell you more about how we're working to be compliant with them.
Sure. So as I kind of mentioned earlier in the call, so I have a legal background, and I'm not going to kind of be apologetic about it. I'm quite a nerd when it comes to this kind of stuff. So apart from literature that I had read from the State Bank's resources itself, when I was in the UK, I had already been kind of researching on whatever the kind of compliance requirements were for payment service providers essentially in the UK, and the kind of regulatory framework over there is just so much more dense compared to here. There are a number of reasons for that. I think one is also, I don't know if the regulatory environment over there kind of resulted in the mushrooming in fintech in London, because I think London is actually, until now, even post-Brexit, the fintech capital of the world. Many companies outside the US decide to kind of headquarter over there with a fintech kind of speciality. And it could be that because of that, the regulation is the way it is and the regulator is as responsive, or it could be vice versa. The regulation was responsive first, which encouraged, which enabled startups like Safepay, for example, to kind of grow and increase in number. But over here, we've definitely seen the right kind of direction and movement from both the State Bank and the government and the kind of associated bodies like SECP, as you mentioned. I think, unfortunately, there is a slight disconnect between the SECP and the State Bank, but that's because whenever anything comes up in relation to payments, the SECP says, yeah, that's the State Bank's responsibility. And so I know the SECP is coming up with these with some regulatory sandbox, and a regulatory sandbox environment, which allows companies like us actually to operate in a kind of insulated environment where they can, they can launch their product. They'll have a certain kind of restriction on the number of users that can be involved, etc. But the only caveat why Safepay can't be a part of that sandbox is because it's a payment, like we're in the payment space. So it's a strange situation in regards to how the SECP and SPP are kind of handling that between themselves. But anyway, I think it's a positive thing that we first have, the amount of kind of literature that there is to begin with, and the regulation, and the payment systems department in particular, the State Bank, is super regular in their kind of updates. So they have quarterly updates on volumes processed, etc., which we find super helpful from a commercial perspective. They were very accommodating of us in January when we met them as well. And I mean, the kind of message we got was that they want us to succeed, actually, because we do that. They also see that we're solving a problem over here. Again, as Ziyad has mentioned, like we want to be kind of regulated in a way, because we know, when you think of payments, you think of money, obviously, and kind of know your customer obligations, anti-money laundering. Pakistan itself is in quite some hot water with the FATF situation currently. The idea is that what we've identified, the kind of regulation alongside the State Bank that we think we need to comply with, and we've abided by that. In fact, we've kind of gone over and above that. And the idea is that we want to be completely transparent, because ultimately we know that what we've developed is a solution for any kind of economic actor in this country, and we don't want to be the reason why it gets shut down for that. So it's as simple as that, really. But as Ziyad mentioned, we don't neatly fall within a current kind of categorization of the PSP, PSO, or EMI kind of frameworks.
Okay, great. So now I think we're going to kind of open to questions. And
Sure. Yeah, can we start questions, Shah? Asad here?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, guys,
Yes,
great. Thank you. It's great to see that people like yourselves are taking a lot of pain. Can you hear me, first of all? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
So I am an ex-banker, and I'm in the space of e-commerce enablement, and like these guys, also payment technology enablement. So we have created two things. We have created, so we are in between Shopify and the Raz, and we have actually onboarded merchants to help them. So our aim is not to do trade as much. We have our small businesses shops just to trade to see if things are working. And then when we onboard these small merchants, they have started enjoying the fact that they get leads, not only leads, but a payment plugin they don't have to create themselves. As they rightly said, both of these gentlemen have actually identified the right problem in Pakistan, that people do not have time or know how to do this. This is the comment, and before this is a small introduction, but my question. So unless somebody wants to ask me what I'm doing more, I'll go to the questions. Then it's more important for me to have the take from these guys. So I just wanted to know, you had mentioned a couple of things, that you are in the, you have the pricing is higher and you have value add. So if you could elaborate on that value add. Number two, you said State Bank was encouraging, but then when you're in a gray space, they say, oh, you do it at your own risk. They are very encouraging, but then they say you sort it out with SCP says you sort it out with State Bank. So which space of compliance that you said that you're in? And could you be a bit more elaborative on that? The last thing is KYC. I mean, like being compliant, but then your merchants could cause the problem. You may be doing really nice plugins, but the merchant may be non-compliant, and you may end up having a problem, and all of us may end up having a problem because onboarding, because we are looking at their trade also. You probably are not. You're just giving them a plug. So in a way, we are involved in their lives of business. So we know actually there's a good business behind them. And all they're doing is they're using our mall, eCarobar mall, to actually process their orders digitally, and then the payment comes through us. And we are not payment processing, but as soon as their product sells, we do the T+3. Yeah. So the three questions. I don't know if it's justified to answer all my questions. Others would be waiting also. But if they're important enough for the forum, then please do answer them.
Yeah. Thank you, Asad. Yes, I'll go over the questions in order. So the first one was, despite our high price, we do offer value-added services. What are those value-added services? What we've kind of built on top of just a core payments processing solution, like initially you mentioned, is we have easy-to-install plugins for all the major shopping platforms in Pakistan. Number two, as Raza mentioned, we have built our own custom solutions on top of Safepay's API, such as quick links that allow merchants who don't have any programming or technical abilities or care about opening an e-commerce store to start collecting payments from their vendors, from their clients, from their customers. Three, we offer easy refunds, which I think is the biggest thing that's missing in the market right now. Refunds for merchants right now with the traditional banks and payment providers works as if you have to call them, you have to talk to their account manager. They'll take information from you, and then they'll take another 2 or 3 days to process that refund. We've given merchants the ability to instantly refund directly from the dashboard, and not only refund the full amount, they can choose an amount they want to refund. So let's say they want to refund only 25% of the actual order because 1/4 of the one out of the 4 things that the customer purchased didn't make it to them. They can now do that for their customers. Another thing is discounts on cards. So we all know in Pakistan that, if you're an HBL Platinum card holder, you get 25% discount at Xander or something like that, right? So now that's all great in the offline world, in retail, but on online, there are banks who are also offering these kinds of discounts to merchants who partner with them. And a lot of merchants have the ability to approach banks and say, hey, look, we have these many customers. We can bring you customers if you give us a discount. But they have no way to program these discounts into their WordPress, Magento, Shopify stores, unless they hire technical developers and pay them a lot of money. We've given that to them for free on the dashboard. So as a Safepay merchant, you can go in, you can configure as many discounts for as many cards, and your customers, if they pay using any of those cards, they'll get a discount, plain and simple. So these kinds of solutions, we've been launching like every month, and we're not going to stop. So until we're sufficiently satisfied with our own high bar, I think we're just going to continue to improve our product. The third thing I think you mentioned was KYC, AML, state bank stuff. Yes. Currently you are in a gray area, you are operating at your own risk, fair enough. We've taken that responsibility on ourselves. And, it's, to be honest, it's more strict from our standpoint, even though we're not regulated by the state bank, because now we have to think about the state bank, obviously, who we can't make them angry. And we also have our acquirer bank, who we can't make them angry either, because if either of them cut us off, then we're done. So instead of one parent, we have two who are looking out for what we're doing. So, that's kind of made us think internally that, hey, maybe we should have more strict guidelines onto who we're allowed to process payments for, and how we onboard them. So as Raza mentioned, we get emails and messages every day from people asking to use Safepay. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to, we can't allow all of them to onboard, right? Because as you mentioned, it is a very delicate situation right now. We don't want one bad actor to bring down the entire network for all of the merchants who are currently using Safepay. So we have our own KYC processes in place that are very sufficient. And as you mentioned, for your specific business model, which is more of like a marketplace kind of setting, where you onboard individual merchants and vendors, what we do for these kinds of business models is we conduct the KYC of their specific merchants who they are onboarding, to make sure that the payments that are coming in from them are legitimate, and then the payments that we're sending to their bank account are also to the bank account of that specific vendor and not some random person. And thirdly, what we've done is, early on, I'm going to just tell you a little story. In November of 2019, we were hit with a lot of fraud in terms of payments. So that threatened the entire network, right? We had payments coming in, large numbers, large volumes from US cardholders. We were like, great, this is awesome. But it's never what it seems to be. That's when you realize that, hey, this could really be bad. If the state bank doesn't catch us, if our bank doesn't catch us, someone will, and we need to act faster than they can. So we built rules and systems on our side that detect anomalies in payments coming into the system, right? So if, for instance, someone is paying with a US-based credit card, or a card with a US billing address, but his IP address shows that his location is in like Punjab or something like that, then it's obviously like maybe a risk of a thing, right? So these kinds of rules we have in place that will flag any transaction, and then we will actively go to the merchant who's responsible for that transaction and guide him appropriately, whether to take advantage of our easy-to-use refund feature to refund that payment, or contact the customer to ask for proof that he is in fact the owner of that card. So we're learning as well as we go. We haven't solved everything yet, but where this is now our kind of job, so we have to kind of do it now.
So how do you compete with, just on that, how do you compete with like the big guys with velocity payment and all these Falcon and Eagle systems on acquiring, which actually are AI driven and everything, and all of us with smaller boutique shops actually can't afford. These are in millions of dollars of licenses. So and we are sitting on top of those layers that they can't detect because our merchants are actually processing. So they kind of falls on us, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Rules would stop it. So the really good point that you have rules, but then in velocity, how do you stop it in the meantime? But when you catch it, by the time you catch it, these guys have done it.
Yeah, like there are things like you said in terms of like velocity and stuff that might just slip under the radar and escape us, right? Those are, I guess, it's like a cost of being in this space, right? So payment fraud internationally is somewhere around like $100 billion industry, right? So no one solved it completely, unfortunately. And what we can do right now is balance the scale that we're trying to achieve with the element of like a human touch that we add before onboarding a merchant, which is we make sure that we speak to them at least once on the phone. And we ask them for X amount of information if we feel that, they haven't provided sufficient information. So for us, I agree, it's at scale, this problem will blow up. But we're right now in the stage where we're trying to build relationships. And as, Paul Graham of YC once said, like, do things that don't scale, right? So we're at that point right now where we're just like, doing our technology bit and then doing all of these things that are like pretty manual at the same time. And then eventually I think we're going to try and automate the things we can, hire more people for the things we can't, and scale out that way pretty much. But you're right, that payments fraud is going to be a problem that is an ongoing thing.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
Pleasure.
So I have a question from Riaz. Number one is that he's asking about bill aggregator OneLink Pakistan, and then he's asking how do you differentiate yourself from Connect Pay, Pay Now, and Quick Pay? So there's a lot of pays here. So
so in terms of bill aggregators like OneLink, OneLink is doing something pretty cool these days in the market where it's launching their own card in Pakistan. So similarly, so you have like Visa, MasterCard, Amex. You now have PayPak, which is Pakistan's own homegrown debit card scheme. And, we're in talks with different players in the market, the different stakeholders, to see how we can allow merchants who are currently using Safepay to also accept PayPak cards. Because the State Bank has mandated that every bank who issues a debit card has to issue a PayPak card as well. So, which is great. I think like reliance on Visa and MasterCard will drop. You're supporting your own homegrown industries and you're making sure that they grow. So to the point of bill aggregators, yes, we would love to work with OneLink, and inshallah in the near future, we definitely will be launching some things related to PayPal, related to bank payments, and basically come up with like a holistic solution where merchants don't have to integrate 10 different options, and customers don't have to, or customers have 10 different options to pay from, right? So we want to make everyone's life easy, pretty much. The second thing, how do we differentiate ourselves from all the different pays out there? So I think from the very start, when we launched Safepay, we were focused on credit and debit card acquiring. Historically, I feel Connect Pay, Quick Pay, Pay Fast, they were on the bank-to-bank transfers, very focused on school fees and invoice payments. A great market to be in. Very, very useful thing that they're building. So the way we kind of differentiated ourselves from the start was that, hey, you know, if you guys want to pay your school fees or pay your bills or whatever, use Quick Pay. It's cheaper. It's for a more consumer-focused kind of thing. It'll help you. If you're a merchant and you want to accept payments from customers in Pakistan and around the world using their credit and debit cards, use Safepay. Because Quick Pay, Connect Pay, and they're great. They can't let you accept payments from abroad. Safepay can. So there's that aspect, which is obviously our business model. And then what we're focused on is obviously the quality of our software that we provide. We don't, you know, we want it to be the best. To the level of support that we provide, you know, for better or for worse, I think WhatsApp has made it so that we now have to reply pretty much instantly because we always have our with us. WhatsApp's always on. There's someone messaging or the other, and it's always easier, in my opinion, to just reply than delay. So the level of customer support we provide is probably like the best. And then, yeah, I guess it's just the quality of our product, the types of relationships we're trying to build helps us kind of sets us apart from the rest of the people in the playing field. Not to say that, you know, what they're doing isn't important or anything like that. It's just we're doing something different and they're doing something different. And there are enough different things that people can do in this market to help these problems.
Okay, amazing. I know we've exceeded the time a little bit, but I just have 2-3 more questions.
Yeah, sure.
So Mohsen is asking, if I top up my Safepay wallet using Silk Bank credit card, will it be debited from my cash withdrawal limit or would it be considered as a purchase?
So we're not like a wallet per se. So I'm not sure which. I'll give you some background. In 2017, I launched Safepay as a wallet application, as a peer-to-peer payments. You could top up your Safepay wallet with your credit or debit card, and you could send money to your friends, to your family for free. Basically the Venmo of Pakistan. That has since changed. Unfortunately, we had to kind of stop working on that so that we could focus on this. So to answer your question, and we don't support wallet top-ups right now, so that wouldn't work.
Okay, and since you said Venmo, there's a question from Aisha. She says that the reason behind quitting Venmo-like solution in Pakistan was just of the regulation, or did you guys face any other issues as well? And is your current your current status as Safepay, is that of just a payment gateway?
For the first question, it wasn't regulation, it was business model, right? We offered it for free to everyone, so anyone could top up their wallet using their credit or debit card and then send money for free and then withdraw that money to their bank account for free. While free is great for customers, it's not great for the business. And we realized that, you know, if we were going to take on A, the cost of topping up your wallet, and B, the cost of withdrawing the money to your bank account, we'd be out of business in 6 months. So that's the main reason we kind of stopped it and decided to focus on something that helped us solve a similar problem, but helped us solve it for a longer period of time, potentially, you know, so that we could kind of cover our costs as well. Sorry, the second question, a part of that was?
Sorry, the second part was that if your current status as Safepay is just a payment gateway.
Okay, yeah. So we're not a payment gateway. We have built our technology on top of an existing payment gateway. And what we kind of want to do is offer these kinds of solutions to people who need them. So right now, we're offering merchants an easier way to process credit and debit card payments. In the future, we'll offer merchants to also accept payments from their customers' bank accounts or from schemes like PayPal. And then even more into the future, we'll also offer merchants the ability to manage their customers and sell their products directly through Safepay, potentially, right? Our goal isn't to be a payment gateway. It's to be the company that people turn to when they want an easy to use, efficient, reliable solution to solve their online economic needs, basically.
Okay, perfect. One last question, I think. So Hasnan wants to ask Raza why we're not using blockchain technology in Pakistan.
That's a pretty vast question. Yeah, I don't think I'm the best qualified to answer that.
There should be a blockchain session for that, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But that being said, as part of the Safeway world, we've been in touch with some pretty interesting startups in Karachi that have been exploring blockchain as a distributed ledger technology, I should be saying rather. And we've actually thought on our side, how could we use it for our own KYC requirements? But I think that's a much broader discussion for other stakeholders also, not least Nadra, etc. But yeah, if I can be excused from answering that question.
Okay, great. I think that's it for the questions. In case
can I ask one last question with these guys? It's interesting. It's the same things we are doing. So is it okay, guys? Have we got time if somebody wants to leave? Sorry, I've kept you for another 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
I think after you, there's Umair who's been waiting to ask a question. So
okay.
Ask the question, I think, this second. Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to know if for people like us, we've also developed the plugins as a Pay Now plugin. So I just wanted to know for people like us with eKarobar, what else are you thinking about so that we can say, as this service we have and it'll be costly to go to you guys, we have our own solution and we can provide that. We are also connected over the gateways and on top of that, banks and also OneLink. So what else is it coming up so that innovatively we can, this is, I keep on telling fintechs should be collaborating more than just competing. It's a big space out there, so we all can play, but what additional services are you thinking of? Apart from,
you know what, we always have these ideas that, hey, it'd be cool if we offer solutions like installment payments or buy now pay later kind of things, and then we always, like, our merchants always kind of guide us in a different direction that ends up being better than what we thought of. So if I tell you something now, most likely it's never going to happen because we'll probably come up with something tangentially different that's better that we didn't think of. So we rely heavily on our existing merchants to tell us, what we should build for them, what problems are they facing right now, where is Safepay lacking, where it shouldn't be lacking, because we ultimately want to just, be the best, but obviously be solving their problems for them, right? We don't want to solve our own problems because, to be honest, like, we're not in the e-commerce space. We're not accepting, we don't have customers who pay us except for our merchants. So our customers are our merchants. So to where we can help them is how we kind of approach the solution, because we only succeed if they succeed. So that's our kind of mindset. So I'd love to kind of collaborate with you. Obviously, I know we're running out of time and stuff, but offline, if we can take this, maybe sure. You have some ideas that we haven't thought of, and we'd love to explore that further.
Sure, let's do that. Yeah, we'll share the links and everything with these guys. Yeah.
Hello, Sanikum. Can you guys hear me? Hello.
Yep.
Yes, we can. Yes.
So Umair bin Tahir here. I'm basically a freelancer. So my question is, are you guys thinking of integrating PayPal with Safepay or something along those lines?
That is a good question, and it's come up quite a bit. Yeah, I would love to. I think.
Is it even possible? Because I can see a very big market here.
Yeah, it's technically very possible, right? So On the technical side, we could build and launch this in under a month. It wouldn't be a big deal. The problem is of the regulations and the flow of money, right? We don't want to do anything in like a jugaad way where, you know, we're using like Safepay's personal PayPal account to process the payments and then sending them via Western Union to Pakistan or something like that. We obviously want to work with PayPal to see if, you know, given the fact that, you know, we're now in a position where we're helping merchants in Pakistan, maybe they'll see some additional value in how PayPal can expand its reach regionally in Pakistan. And then at the same time, we'd have to talk to regulators in Pakistan to see what leeway they have in allowing us to onboard PayPal.
How do you guys process the payments right now? For example, if someone from America has to send a payment, how will he send the payment in Pakistan? Like, will he use his Bank of America debit or credit card to pay, or what exactly the process, the steps he has to follow?
Correct. Yeah. So he would use his Bank of America debit or credit card. That information would flow through our systems. And then because we have an acquirer behind us, we're able to forward that information to the payment gateway, which forwards it to Visa MasterCard network. Visa MasterCard network would then talk to your customer's bank account, and if everything goes well, that money would be debited from his US bank account, flow through the international, you know, plumbing of payments, and get settled into Safepay's Pakistani bank account, which is only possible because we have an acquirer behind us who's connected directly with the international banking system.
All right. So how do you differentiate this process with Zoom and what TransferWise is using? And will you guys ask that what is the purpose of sending this payment? For example, if I send like $5,000 a month from my Bank of America to my technically Safepay and then my own bank account. So will I be asked at any point that what is the purpose behind this big transaction?
Yes, 100%. There are flags in place to surface high value transactions, especially if they're coming from abroad, right? Because sure, remittances are a huge market, but it's a highly regulated one. And TransferWise and Zoom have the appropriate money transmitting licenses to allow people to send money across borders for remittance purposes. Now, Safepay allows people to engage in commerce online. So if you're selling to a customer abroad, sure, you can do that, as long as that customer ends up receiving what he purchased. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So I, for example, if I have a friend in USA who has his Bank of America account, what we do right now is that he sent the money directly to my HBL account, like through Zoom and through TransferWise, and no one asks any question. And that's how most of the freelancers are working. They take the payment. Since you live in USA, so you would have an idea about, there are two types of technically payments when we pay via PayPal. One is friends and family, and other one is goods and services. So we basically take payment from client via friends and family, when he is actually our client. After that, we send that payment from PayPal to Bank of America. And after having it in Bank of America, it hardly takes an hour to transfer it to my HPL via Zoom or TransferWise. So, and I know people who have even done like payments of $15,000 or $15,000 per month, but no one ever got a single call, neither from HBL that what is the purpose of receiving such a big amount, and nor someone asked those guys in America that they are students there and they are transacting such a big amount. So how do you see that?
Yeah.
And
so
the rate is like today it's 167, so they will be offered 163 or 164 on Zoom or TransferWise.
Yeah. So the way these companies work, and I'll try to be quick because I know we're kind of running out of time. Those payments are made through wire transfers digitally, right? So Bank of America and HBL are connected together via some banking channel that allows them to transfer these funds through a bank-to-bank transfer, as opposed to paying via your credit or debit card. Now, if you try and make a $15,000 purchase from your credit or debit card, your bank will instantly ask questions, because credit and debit cards aren't meant for crazy large purchases. They're meant for more casual, $200, $100 kind of purchases. And these large sums are usually transferred through wire because they're cheaper, right? So when you do a wire transfer, you're mostly probably going to be charged maybe $20 to $30. Whereas if you were to do it over credit or debit card, you'd be charged 3%, which would be ridiculous. Secondly, the way Zoom and all of these companies work is that they've integrated these kinds of ACH wire transfer mechanisms into their backend that allow them to kind of show you a nice interface, but at the back end, they're probably just sending messages to Bank of America. And at the end of the day, Bank of America will generate one giant Excel sheet and send it to their system. That Excel sheet will get processed in a batch, and then HBL will receive the settlement on their side. The way Zoom makes money, like you mentioned, the spread on the exchange rate, they'll give you a very awful exchange rate, and they'll make money over there. So yeah, currently Safepay unfortunately can't do that. We don't have the appropriate licenses or the regulatory approval to move large sums of money around, but we're focused on providing solutions around commerce in general.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Perfect. I think that was like our last question. I also have one question. I don't know if you can answer this in public or not. Are you guys raising right now?
Raza?
I mean, we're open to conversations, but as you can imagine, I think with the current state of the global economy in general, obviously, I think that conversation may be for another day. But it's definitely something on our radar.
Okay.
Yeah, we're preparing for that. I think it's the only logical solution for us to scale and continue the growth that we're seeing, and especially cater to the demand that is coming through the doors. So right now, as we mentioned, we have a small team of 5 people who are spread across the world, and we're able to somehow manage the crazy amount of work that we have. But I think to formalize it a bit better and bring on strategic investors who not only can offer the capital that we need, but also the experience and the connections that might prove to be useful in the future. So yes, we're definitely exploring the fundraising process, and the times right now, unfortunately, aren't the best. But there is still a significant interest in our business model, because if anything, Corona has shown how important online economies are. So
I think it's especially in Pakistan, right? Because the only reason I've gone out in this quarantine in the past 10 days is to deposit either a check or cash in the bank, right? So I think that's a very critical part of our economy that hasn't been digitalized for a very long time. I don't know why a lot of the banking institutions have been not very proactive, but I think this is definitely the next big problem that now everyone is trying to understand. Okay, this should have been solved, or this needs to be solved. So.
Yeah, and companies need to be nimble and agile about it. So you should, as a company, start thinking about like an omni-channel approach, right? So don't ignore online, don't ignore offline. Yeah. Right now, obviously, we're seeing that because of Corona, the offline world is kind of dying, but the online world is coming to life. So those companies who are able to react and adapt and evolve their businesses to take advantage of the online space are the ones who are going to succeed and thrive. But the ones who ignore this space are the ones who are going to be left behind, unfortunately. Now, at the same time, let's say that tomorrow our Pakistan's undersea cables get hit by a whale and we lose internet connectivity, then online payments die basically, and you have to rely on retail. So don't ignore either channel. They're both very important, but think holistically, not single-mindedly, pretty much.
Absolutely. No, perfect. Thank you so much for joining. I'm not sure if Shehab has anything else to ask.
Thank you. No, thank you. A very insightful conversation, and thank you for your time. I know we exceeded by half an hour, but I hope it was worth it. So thank you.
And
thank you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for the amazing audience. We had a bunch of amazing people join us in the audience today. See you in another virtual event.
Yeah. Bye guys. Thank you all for joining.
Bye.